By the time you're listening to this, Washington is likely already in the air, headed to East Lansing. We're going to break down the Michigan State versus Washington matchup right here on Locked On Huskies.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
To another Thursday edition of Locked On Huskies. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. We write for Inside the Huskies with Fan Nation Sports Illustrated. You can check out all our written work over there at si.com/college/Washington. Today, we're going to be breaking down Washington's future Big Ten matchup. Right now, it's a Pac-12 Big Ten matchup with the Michigan State Spartans. And, I'm really excited about it. But first, I got to remind everybody that today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Lars Hanson, we're here. It's time for a game preview. And let's start with everybody's favorite topic. I feel like we always open the show with a lot of offense, and we're doing that again today. We're not switching anything up here. But let's just dive into the offense. What's the number one thing that you're going to be looking for with this matchup with the Spartans?
I mean, again, it's almost a little bit of a cliche because we know the passing offense is going to be what it is, and I think that's not going to change. I just want to be able to see the run game kind of fully come together. Dylan Johnson should be able to be healthy for this game. The offensive line, I think, with or without Mateo Mele, I think it might take a little bit of a regression if he doesn't play, but I still think as a unit collectively, they should be able to run the ball effectively against Michigan State. So I think that's kind of where I'm most intrigued to see where this matchup goes.
I agree. And so for me personally, I think that the matchup is in the secondary, because that's one thing that I've talked to some Michigan State people already through the course of the week, and the sentiment that I've heard is pretty unanimous. It's that they're pretty confident in their front seven and the ability to stop the run, and they are just scared to death of what might happen in the secondary. And so that's the one thing that I looked at, and it's something I talked about with Big Ten Ted on his show. And then you'll hear it again on Friday as Matt Sheehan and I do a crossover episode of Locked On Huskies and Locked On Spartans. So make sure you check that one out as well, where he said, yeah, the secondary is, I'm really nervous about what might happen in the secondary. And I said, well, as hard as it might be for some Big Ten fans to believe, especially Michigan State fans who saw what happened last year, Washington's passing offense is better than it was last year. And especially because the receiving core is better than it was last year.
Right. And I think, in that same vein, I think we know the Washington's going to have success passing the ball. I think what's going to be the key there is if they can get a passing touchdown in the first couple of drives, that will allow the secondary to have to kind of step back and say, hey, maybe we're going to sacrifice more for the passing game. And that'll open up the box in the front seven to get the run game going and maybe control the clock a little bit more, because you do want to get that lead, but then you want to have control of the game as well. You don't want to just keep throwing it, because Ryan Grubb has said you do want to have that balance. They do want to have that balance, at least a 60-40 split. Michael was completing it almost a 70%, 75% clip against Tulsa. So I think we don't have a doubt about the passing game. I think we know that's going to be their key to success. But it's this, the key to that second half and controlling the game to not let Michigan State back in like they did last year is going to be to continue to establish the run and have that go into the second half.
I like that a lot. And that's just the question, the only question we've had about this offense the first couple of weeks. And you talked about Mateo Mele, who might play, might not. There's still really no word on that or any injuries really. So it's just kind of going to be who's out there on the field on Saturday, 2 hours before kickoff. I guess we'll find out then. So until then, all we can do is just talk about the matchups, because Washington's offensive line is still really solid. Michigan State's defensive line is experienced. They're solid. I heard there might be some questions about Jacoby Windman's health and whether he's going to play or not, but that's somebody who was really great at just getting after the quarterback last year, and something where Trey Fauton and Roger Rosengarten on the outside at tackle, they've been really, really solid for the Huskies. So it's something where I know I've said this before, and I'm definitely going to be saying it again. Michigan State's pass rush was this vaunted beast going into last year's matchup with Washington. Everyone was saying, oh, well, Michigan State's going to really get after the quarterback and the Washington offensive line is going to be tested. They didn't really get close to touching Michael Penix at all. So that's something where until Michigan State proves that they can actually get after this Washington offensive line, I'm just going to kind of say, yeah, I think the Husky offensive line is going to have a major advantage there.
Yeah, I agree. I remember asking Ryan Grover about that on Monday, where he said, "No, they're good guys. They're good." But I think again, it's still that level of competition. But when we look at the same thing for Washington, where they don't have the same number of sacks against slightly better competition, right? But not a ton better.
Sure.
I think okay, well, the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, right? But I think when you're still looking at Michigan State's front four versus Washington's front five, I think you're taking Washington's front five every day. At least maybe not every day, but you're more than likely as a safe bet to take Washington's offensive line, especially at the tackle position.
Absolutely. They're the number one pass protecting group in the country right now, according to Pro Football Focus. And that's something you definitely take 10 times out of 10. And that's something where I feel like we've discussed this in person. I can't remember if we discussed this on the show or not. We have so many different conversations all the time where we discuss so many different things, where one thing I said was eventually this is going to have to even out, right? Like it's something where the run game can't, like it's not going to be, I remember you showed me the PFF stats where they're 98th, 99th in the country in run blocking at this time. There's no way that's going to just stay where it is. Like there's going to be some balance found there. I wouldn't be surprised if they stayed as the number one passing group in the country with just everything that they can do there. But I don't think that the run blocking is going to be quite that bad throughout the season.
Right. Well, I mean, certainly it can't be if they want to achieve the success that they want to have. I mean, yes, you're because you're able to, like we said, you're able to get the results against Boise State and against Tulsa, but those same results aren't going to happen, especially when we see how talented the Pac-12 is in terms of number of top 25 teams. And Washington's going to play most of them. They're not going to play all of them, but they're going to play most of them in the regular season. Just that's going to be a different case come conference play. So as you hit the nail on the head, that's something where it's going to have, they don't have to, again, be top 10 in both, right? If they are, more power to you, but it's just, the gap can't be that different because you, as you said earlier, this is the best Washington pass offense, probably certainly better than last season, which is saying a lot given what they did last season. So it's a matter of just, can the run game, almost like the defense, do enough, right? Just maybe combine three players for 120, 130 yards, maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns. But we saw against Tulsa, they don't necessarily need the running backs to score, but I think at the same point, you don't want to keep risking Rome Odunze out of the backfield, and things like Jalen McMillan on a design keeper, Those are things where you can do that in certain situations, but you don't want to have that become almost like what the Wildcat was in 2018 or 19, where it was like we can't get a yard unless we're doing it out of the Wildcat. Like that was criminal. Like, you can't get to that level, but you certainly can, still use creativity and things like that, which I'm sure they're going to do. I'm not saying go away from the creativity, but you just want to have Will Nixon, Daniel Ngata, and hopefully Daniel Johnson carrying more of that load, no pun intended.
Right. I think you meant that pun there. That was a good one. I enjoyed that. So the one thing that I do kind of want to push back on there a little bit is I do think that we're going to see that creativity of like the first play of the game when they came out in a 5 wide set, and it was Jalen McMillan and Jeremy Bernard in the backfield. I do think we're going to see that a little bit more often throughout the rest of the season, and it's to no fault of the running backs. It's simply because all 5 wide receivers that were on the field on that play are so insanely talented that you can't, there's no world where you can't get them all on the field. And if you have all of them on the field at the same time, I think that like a defensive coaching box might just explode, because it's just that it can be that much of an issue for just to try to cover that with there, because there aren't, unless this is like, I don't know, 2018 Alabama, I don't think there are enough talented defensive backs to stick with all 5 of those guys at one time.
Yeah, that might be a good question down the line. What defense can match up body for body with Washington's offense?
That'd be fun.
Like, I off the top of my head, I truly can't think of one to 5, maybe 1 to 3, but sure. 4 and 5 are equally as good as 1 and 2 here, and you can't say that about most other schools.
I like that a lot. And as we move on here, got to take a minute here, and it's time to remind the good people at home about Jase Medical, because everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com with the promo code LOCKEDON. Now it's time to flip-flop here, and we're going to be talking about Washington's defense against Michigan State's offense. So when it's in the same exact way that we were just talking about the Husky offense versus the Spartan defense, everything that I've heard from people that I've talked to is Michigan State is really, really confident running the ball with Nolan Carter. And the question is Noah Kim, the quarterback, going to be able to make the throws needed? He was just named the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week for his performance against the Richmond Spiders. So we're going to leave that caveat in there. By the way, just 5 seconds. How do you feel about the Spiders as a mascot? Because it's just not. I don't know how I feel about that one.
I mean, the thing is, I would have an opinion on that if I knew where is that a Virginia school, right? Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was gonna say, other than that obvious guess, I wouldn't have known where Richmond was. So it's kind of like, okay, Spiders, is that even unique? Not really, no.
But now back to the real football talk. I had to get that in there real fast. It's the running attack is going to be. I want to figure out how I want to phrase that. The running attack is going to be where the issues are. Right, because we've seen that so far with the defense through 2 games. And my question is, and we talked about it a little bit on yesterday's show, is are they going to bring a 7th and maybe even an 8th defender down into the box to play and run support and just force Noah Kim to beat you one-on-one?
I mean, that's a fair bet to say that they might take that approach. I mean, I think we know they're probably going to take a couple different approaches to this game, and certainly how the game plays out, they're going to obviously kind of balance out what Michigan State ends up showing them. But I think, honestly, Washington shouldn't, I don't want to say sell out to stop the run, but I almost kind of think don't you want to empower those guys in the front four to, especially a Braylon Trice and Zion when he's coming back, to just as 4 or 5 stop the run. See if you guys can do it on your own. Maybe, get Eddie or Alfonso coming down. Because you don't necessarily want to keep having to bring Dom down or hope that K-Pat comes off a safety blitz sort of thing. Because yes, you're taking those risks, but also, I mean, do you trust Washington's corner aside from Jabbar Muhammad? Do we trust Washington's cornerbacks on an island? I'm not necessarily sure. I mean, I would, right? But I would almost rather prove that Michigan State truly can run against you, and then see if you need to add more bodies to the box versus starting that way.
So I'm going to say that yes, we can trust these Washington corners on an island, because that's what this scheme is. And we were shown that last year too, where the scheme is that William Inge and Chuck Morrell, the co-defensive coordinators, have just kind of shown through their calls that, yeah, we want these guys on an island. We want that to happen, because that's what happened against Oregon. That's what happened against Arizona. That's what happened against Arizona State. It happens like everywhere. Was they put their cornerbacks out on an island, and it would have been a whole different scenario if Jordan Perriman were fully healthy for the entire season, because I think that might have changed things. And that's kind of why I've been harping on this point of Jabbar Muhammad has been everything that he's been asked, or everything that he's been billed as and more, because not only has he been a really talented cornerback that can lock down half the field or take away a top receiver, whatever you want him to do, but that's what the scheme needs. That's what the scheme thrives on. It's kind of like what Jalen Ramsey and the Jacksonville Jaguars did for a while. Or I was going to say Richard Sherman and the Seahawks. That's a whole different story because there was so much talent there. But it's something where you can kind of scheme around that, where it says, okay, yeah, we can, because if we have this one guy who can play that man, and I think Thaddeus Dixon or Elijah Jackson can get to that point too. I don't know if they're going to be what Jabbar is, but they're really, really talented too. And they can, at the very least, be trusted in man-to-man coverage. So I think that there is that opportunity and I think we're going to see a decent amount this Saturday, because Michigan State's receiving core is fine. Like, let's be honest here. There's no Jaden Reed. There's no Keon Coleman. There's no Jeremy Bernard. And they could have some guys in the room that, maybe in 2 or 3 years, it's, oh yeah, that guy's really good. But right now, they're fine. That's it. And Washington's cornerbacks, for the most part, yeah, they're also fine and a little bit untested. But a lot of those guys have been around a little bit longer, and just it feels like from what we've heard from the coaching staff that they trust them in those opportunities.
Right. One, I think whether they trust him, I mean, we know they trust him, but I think the point is it's also a proven thing where both Elijah Jackson and Devon Banks have gotten close to equal reps in the first couple weeks of the season to kind of show what they can do. So I think this is kind of the one for both of them, and especially if Devon can come back healthy. But if you can't, that's also the same point for Elijah. That, hey, prove that you can lock down Antonio Gates Jr. Prove that you can lock down some of these guys to where maybe they're not at the top echelon of where they're going to be in terms of the game. Like you're not going up against you're not going up against a Roman Odunze, for example, but you're going up against Roman in 2021 when he was a redshirt freshman, where it's like, hey, he's going to be something. He's a good dude. So kind of this is your opportunity to say, hey, no, you should be the guy locking him down. And that will actually allow, because if you can do that, then you, to your point, that's when you can sell out for more to stop the run, because Michigan State, to your point, is going to try to run the ball as much as possible.
Right. Just a quick second here. Got to remind everybody about Locked On College Football Live, because college football season is here, and this season Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On College Football Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On will go live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, conference rivalry games, and go in depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of Locked On College hosts covering their team every day. Find Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on any Locked On College YouTube channel, so you can find it right here on Locked On Huskies. You won't want to miss it. Whew. Okay, I know this is something you wrote about on Inside the Huskies, so I wanted to make sure that we took a second to mention it, and I know I'm going to have something on it in the next segment. I'm sure you will as well. Javon Parker returning to the state of Michigan. We'll see if Armand Parker plays as well. He's been inactive for the first two games. But if he also plays, do you think that he's somebody who could just kind of change this game with that little bit of extra energy that he might bring?
I certainly think so. I mean, we saw it at times last season when he was able to get it in. We've seen it in a little bit of spurts this season in the first couple of games of the season, where he is kind of a difference maker along the defensive line. But he's like a budding difference maker, right? He's not a game wrecker there. He's
still a true sophomore.
Right, exactly. But you can see, and you hit the nail on the head, that engine, that motor that he has, and as an interior pass rusher, because again, with Braylon Trice, Zion, Voy, and all the guys outside, you're good there. But we've talked about this numerous times, where you want to be able to have that pressure up the middle, both in the run and pass, right? Because I think that's not an underrated part of his game. But ironically, the ironic part of the Parker brothers, I want to touch on this because since we're here already, the Parker brothers, when they were coming out of high school, out of Fortson High School, Armand was the one that was coveted. Armand had better scholarship offers, and he hasn't. Again, this is not a slight to him, right? Because it's unfortunate and injuries, but it's almost like a testament to UW's development and scouting, to where, hey, we're going to take both of them, and theoretically, the lower ranked one has been able to play more. So I think the fact that this to your point, making this trip next year could be Armand's breakout year, things like that, to where, hey,
we could see it play more later this year too.
Right, but it's like Javon's kind of laying that foundation. So I think in a cool way, Javon's going to have the first crack at Michigan State, going when they're going to the Big Ten starting next season. And I think this truly is kind of a game where when we talked to him on Tuesday, it was like, hey, you guys should have come and got me, man. I mean, you offered. I mean, as I wrote about on Inside the Huskies, they offered him a walk-on scholarship, but to be fair, that was also like Washington offering Drew Fowler a walk-on opportunity, but he could have gone to Utah. He could have done things like that. But that one is a little more expected, just because Washington usually, when they want certain guys from an in-state perspective, it's just kind of natural. And I think Drew, each individual case is their own. But I think, you nailed it. Like he's got a chip on his shoulder. There's no way around it. And I think, I think we both kind of have a similar in-game prop, shall we say.
So let's just move right along and we'll get there. But first, maybe some people are looking for a doubleheader. They're going to hit the Husky Spartan game on Saturday, and then they're going to go to the Lion Seahawks game in Detroit on Sunday. And you know where you need to go to buy those tickets? Gametime. Because Gametime has flash deals and last minute tickets, and they also have easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. In this case, hopefully that's what you'll be attending, nice little double dip of Seattle sports. It'll be very fun. And that's why Gametime is the place for last minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. And you can get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. It's all there. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you with 110% of the difference. So you can snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. So do you want to start us off here with one of your bold predictions? As you talked a little bit about props,
Right.
There's one I want to steal from you, but I'm going to give you did the cold open, so I'm going to give you the first shot here.
I was going to say, well, now I'm not necessarily hoping that I don't take your prop. Do you want me to carry on from the segment that we just talked about?
You can go.
Well, I was going to say, because that was the prop. I was going to say Javon Parker at least 1.5 sacks.
1.5. Oh, I like that. Okay, that's good. So that's not where I was going.
Okay, good.
I was going to go to the other side of the ball for somebody, and I'm doubling down on your prediction in our YouTube short from last week for the game. Jeremy Bernard, 2 touchdowns. He's going to score twice against his former team. Will one of them be on a kick return? Maybe not. If FanDuel had some odds on that, might just see what you might be able to do there. But I think that Jeremy Bernard is going to be a huge part of this game plan, not just because he's an insanely talented receiver, but this is, kind of his going back to Michigan State and look what you guys lost kind of party. So I think that's something that I would definitely throw some money on if you're using the FanDuel app.
Well, it's not even just that, that they didn't use him after the Washington game last season. It was so bizarre. It's like you played 53 snaps against Washington in week, three, right. 3. And then the next highest that he played was 17 in like week 11 or something like
wild.
That. But there was no injuries. There was no disciplinary reason. It wasn't, again, great kid, does everything right.
Fantastic person. Yeah.
Honestly, he's as electric and unique off the field as he is on the field. Yes. When you talk to him, but he's also humble, right? He's not. He's confident, right? He's all these receivers kind of have that same energy of like, we know how good we are, and it almost kind of Penix kind of creates that diamond where it's like he knows how good. He's like, yeah, that was just a high ball,
And what's the third part? Because I think it's a triangle. You got Penix there, you got the receivers, and then I think it all stems from one other person, and that's Jamarcus Shepard. Because I don't think that, and this is something I know we've got some predictions that we're going to get back to, because I have a couple other bold predictions that I wanted to make sure we touched on, but Jamarcus Shepard, and we're recording this on Wednesday. I just had a chance to speak with him about hour and a half ago, and it's something where every time you talk to him, I think about, especially with what you just said, with how these receivers' personalities and just kind of how they carry themselves off the field, they have learned so much from Jamarcus, who is just one of the kindest, most energetic and confident people that you will ever meet in your life. And every day that I get to talk to him, I just kind of think about, wow, he was such a great hire for this university and this particular group of guys for so many reasons. And I think that right there, his personality and the way that he's been able to infuse his confidence into his receivers is a huge part of that.
And he's a perfect fit for Ryan Grubb because they're both brutally honest guys.
Yes.
Like I don't know if you could meet 2 more brutally honest coaches and respectful at the same point, right? Where they don't dog anybody, but they tell you exactly what it is. I mean, no matter who the player is, whether it's good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, they will call it what it is. And I think that chemistry the two of those guys have together really is kind of what makes it go insane, because you have to have both components. You can't just have Ryan scheming it up and a receiver core that's kind of like, okay, we'll just run the routes and call it a day. You need that electricity. You need that fire, you need that spark. And also, he is also a really good coach, it must be said. It's not just an energy thing. He's not just a towel waving guy on the sideline. Like
the top 5 receiver coach in the country.
Top 3, and he's not 3. Like,
I was being modest.
But it's kind of hard to knock Brian Hartline off that top pedestal. I mean, all things considered. But if the question is Brian Hartline or Jamarcus Shepard, I think you're pretty comfortable at that point.
Absolutely. So getting back on track here from our
Yes.
fun little, I'm going to stay on the offensive side here because as all our everydayers out there know, I don't do score predictions. So I'm going to leave that for you at the end. But I do bold predictions. And one that I have is Washington is going to score. I'm going to go back to the 2-touchdown well here. Yes, I think that they can score a lot of points. I know, so shocking after watching this offense for 2 games. I think that they're going to score 2+ rushing touchdowns on Saturday as well. I don't know where they're going to come from. I think Dylan Johnson gets 1. I don't know about 2+ for him, but I think that there are going to be 2+ rushing touchdowns scored by the Huskies this weekend.
Michael Penix gets the other one.
Really?
I mean the thing, and I'll get to my prediction here in a little bit, but I think, again, I think the two overarching questions are: can Washington score over 45 on offense, and can Washington's defense hold the opposing offense to under 30? I think that's kind of comfortably where you're at now. Style points are kind of where the rest of that comes into play, right? You want to put teams away, you want to make it count, because if you're winning, let's say they win 48-35, okay, good, but that means Michigan State also covered. Now, yes, it is on the road, so it is, it wouldn't be too surprising, right, if they covered, right? All things considered, what they got going on over there, and the team kind of gelling together and things like that. But at the same point, Washington also, this offense and this team is built for one thing. They came back for a national championship, and you got to put teams away like this. Michigan State's good, they're respectable, they're okay, but they are by no means USC. They are by no means Oregon. They are by no means, I insert other team in that middle, Utah. So like
I was going to say Utah. Is that where you're going with this?
Well, I was more saying, but that tier, they're kind of in that Cal tier. They're in that Oregon State tier where they could be good, but it's between 8 and 6 wins, right? You're good, but you should put this team away at the end of it,
right? And I like that a lot, because that's one thing where the spread is 16. That's a lot to cover, and that's especially a lot for 2 Power 5 schools when it's not like Rutgers, Ohio State, which I know that's usually worse, but that's a lot to cover. I think they're able to do that, but I think it would almost say more about Michigan State if they're able to cover the spread than if the Huskies are able to win by like 3 touchdowns.
Right. And I think the thing to remember with all of this sort of thing is Washington could jump out to, let's say, a 28-10 lead or a 28-7 lead at halftime, but then Michigan State fights back in the second half and it's a 14-point game. Well, you cover the spread. Boom, right there. You still win by 2. Washington wins by 2 touchdowns. You get the result on the road, but you lose the bet because it's 14 not 16. So I think it kind of comes down to a little partly semantics, where it's like, okay, well, that's usually why I kind of encourage people to not, again, do what you will with your money. But, when you see like 21, 28, 35, stay away from those, because it's really like, yes, should they? Right. But that's usually also when the crazy happens. And all of it's like, Colorado, it's like, okay, that was an easy plus 21, because it's like, whether they win the game or not, different story. But there's no way that team is going to get blown out week 1 to start this whole thing off.
Right. All right, Lars, what's your next bold prediction for this game?
Oh, what are we gonna say? Somebody. Well, because I already did Zach. Somebody. You know what? I'm gonna triple down on the interception train, but I'm gonna triple down on who it is. Give me Cameron Fabikialanen at least 1 interception and keep the streak going.
I like that. Okay, that's a fun one.
Because we know somebody has to do it, and I think kind of how this matchup breaks down, if he is going to be that single high safety and roaming around, he's likely going to be that guy.
I respect that. So I was also flipping over to the defensive side for my next one, but I'm going to stick at the linebacker position. And I don't know how bold this sounds, but if you look at the stat sheets through the first couple of games, give me Edifon Ulofosio. I'm changing it. I was going to say 10 tackles. I'm going to say 12 tackles. He's just going to fly around the field. I think that he's going to be asked to do a whole lot, especially defending the run. And I think that just with who he is, he's one of the captains of this team, that he's going to want to set the tempo defensively. And I think that it's going to be a really, really big day for him.
I mean, again, it's one of those where all these hit, it's kind of like, it's what we expect, right? It's what needs to happen. It's what we know should happen, but it's a matter, you still got to go out there and execute it, because, I mean, Eddie was one of those guys where he said, my eyes were in discipline week 1. My eyes were getting disciplined, but they're not there yet. So now it's like, hey, this is a game where, okay, fine. You got the 2 preseason games out of there. You got to make it count on Saturday.
Yep. All right, Lars, It's time for everybody's favorite segment, Lars' score prediction.
52-24 Washington. What Michigan State, I think they're going to put up some points. I almost said 28. Okay. I don't know how the math is going on that, but I think it's kind of be one of those. It's either going to be that wide or it's going to be like a touchdown game. I just don't see the latter happening. Again, certainly possible, but I think once this team gets in gear, and again, it's the earlier this team gets in gear, the better. But because we've seen them take it a little bit of time. But once this team gets in gear, it's over.
And I like it. No, I was just going to agree with you. I like it. Please, do you have any final thoughts here as we begin to wrap up?
No, I'm just excited. I'll be out there in East Lansing. First time out there. I went to the Michigan game in 2021, so hopefully this result will be better. That's all I gotta say there.
Husky fans, if you see him out there and you're also out there, make sure you say hi and make sure to let him know that you're an everydayer, because we always appreciate hearing that. Because Lars, you will not be joining us on the Friday show, as we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier. Make sure you tune in for the Friday show, as it will be me and Locked On Spartans host Matt Sheehan. We are going to be doing a crossover show, so you won't have to go anywhere to find that. You can find it here. You can find it on Locked On Spartans as well. We always prefer that you come to us as the everydayers, so because that's why you're subscribed on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Bang! See, I made that transition right there. I enjoyed that one a lot. And yeah, no, truly, we always appreciate your support. We appreciate you liking, commenting, subscribing, leaving us those 5-star reviews wherever you listen to this podcast. It really does mean a lot to us, and we try to make sure that this is the best podcast for you every single day. Thank you so much for listening, and we will both talk to you after the game on Saturday.